Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Story number 1, Terran Engineers, written by Average Cake Enjoyer. Scythene's face was a pale shade of yellow, her tentacles moving in a flurry as she yelled out commands to her crew over the sound of klaxons. Chatter and relayed commands filled the room, the bridge lighting up in a dim blue as the shields dissipated laser blasts.
How long until we can jump into hyperspace?
5 minutes until we can escape the planet's gravity well, ma'am.
How about the Federation?
They're still 20 minutes out. There wasn't a ship that close to us.
She slammed a tentacle down onto the arm of her chair in frustration. She didn't think that she'd be ambushed by pirates in Federation space. True, the pirates were getting more audacious recently, but they'd only been striking convoys by the outer rim worlds, not anywhere close to Federation core worlds. Glancing to a panel to her left, she saw that her shields were barely holding up to the sustained fire from the pirate vessel. A miracle in and of itself, as the freighter's shields weren't meant to handle sustained fire like this. It didn't even have any defensive armaments, as the small point defense railguns on the ship were only meant to safeguard the ship from stray asteroids. Scythene opened her mouth to shout another barrage of orders, but before she could, the wind was taken from her lungs as she lurched forward in her chair, the ship deaccelerating suddenly. The bridge was plunged into darkness before the emergency lights turned on. A loud robotic voice filled the bridge, cutting through the commotion.
Morning! Reactor damage. Shield capacitors nominal. Recommend evacuation.
She barely had time to absorb what just happened before the pirate sent a message over, a gravelly voice playing through the speakers.
Federation ship, release your cargo or face extermination. Your engines and shields are disabled and you cannot go about. You have 15 minutes to respond.
Her face blanched, and she heard the pirate's demands for her cargo being trillions of credits worth of antimatter. Letting the pirates get their hands on that would let them create antimatter munitions, something she knew that she couldn't let them do.
Engineering, report, she called out through the intercom. Senior Engineer Shaknak reporting. The main reactor is non-functional and I think it's beyond repair.
She let out a deep sigh, knowing what she had to do.
Are you 100% sure?
Affirmative. Keying the ship-wide comm, she spoke. All crew to evacuation pods, we're scuttling the ship.
Wait!
An unknown voice yelled through the comms, making Scythene freeze on the spot.
Who is this? Junior Engineer Jonathan speaking. I think I have a solution, but, you won't like it.
She moved her conversation to a private channel. Then, speak. Snackhack looked on in perplexion as he watched the human jump around the reactor room, tapping furiously on his datapad, his brow furrowed in concentration.
Human, this cannot work. Whatever you're doing, actually, what are you doing?
He looked up briefly before resuming what he was doing. Something incredibly stupid, which is... Jonathan let out an annoyed sigh, lowering his datapad.
I'm going to reroute whatever we've got left in our shield capacitors into the reactor.
You'll what?
See? That's why I didn't tell you.
You'll overload the damn reactor. It'll explode and kill us all. Are you crazy?
Just a little bit. Look, it'll release a feck-ton amount of energy before it goes kablooey. So we'll use that power to sublight these shields, and right before it goes boom, we eject the reactor.
Yes, that's good and all, but we've got pirates on us, remember?
And they'll follow us, so put 2 and 2 together.
What are you talking about? Oh.
The impressively bad idea finally dawned on Snackhack mid-sentence, completely catching him off guard.
Oh.
Now you're getting it. They're going to follow us, and when they do, we're going to eject a reactor right about to melt down in front of them. They won't see it coming, because who'd inject their own reactor, right?
And the captain agreed to this.
I'm as surprised as you are. Now either leave me alone, or help me, he said, extending a datapad towards the large reptile.
You know, there is a good chance the reactor explodes as soon as we route the power, right?
Yep. Snackhack let out a quiet growl, taking the datapad from the human's hands.
You're completely unhinged, human. I hope you know that.
I'll take that as a compliment. The bridge of the pirate ship was filled with the sounds of celebration, most of the crew hooting and hollering at the thought of their big break. Commander Zabal had no clue what was in the freighter, but after getting his crew to scan the ship, even he couldn't stop himself from letting out a small smile. Scans showed an obscene amount of antimatter, just what they needed to stick it to the Federation. But they couldn't just shoot the ship to force them to capitulate. Without the freighter's shields, they might accidentally breach the antimatter containment chamber, and that wouldn't be good for anybody. But it wasn't anything a few death threats couldn't fix, so we didn't really worry about it too much. Federation supply crews didn't have much of a backbone anyways. Nearly lapsing into a daydream of what he'd do after he took their cargo, he was snapped out of it when a crippled ship's engine lit up, their shields reactivating. The Federation ship already had a massive head start before he caught on to just what happened.
Crap! Chase that fucking ship now! Don't let them get away! He roared,
the crew scattering to their positions, their own engines lighting up in return. They gave the Federation ship chase, their cannons firing at full tilt as they caught up to the ship. Even when the ship's shield started flickering, clearly under immense strain, it didn't stop. Seeing that the Federation ship didn't want to stop, he scowled.
If they don't want us to have their cargo, so be it. Destroy the ship.
Yes,
Feck. What was that? Look, what?
Following his crew member's pointed finger, it led him to the freighter that he was chasing. He squinted, unable to see his subordinate was pointing out, until he saw a pulsing hunk of metal eject from the ship.
What's that? He said,
guffawing at the sight.
Their ship's falling apart. Well done.
No, sir. They just ejected the reactor.
And it's melting down, and we're heading right towards it.
The Commander Zabal's face paled, his eyes going wide.
Crap!
A bright flash exploded from where the chasing ship used to be, the nova-like explosion turning the pirate ship into nothing but atoms. Satine couldn't believe her eyes, her tentacles limp in her side as she sat slack-jawed, letting out a shaky breath. She spoke into the intercom. Pirates eliminated. We're safe. Silence washed over the bridge before the crew exploded into shouts of joy, the air around them positively charged with relief. A voice spoke over the intercom.
Federation vessel, this is the warship Pike speaking. We're 2 minutes away, but it seems that you dealt with the pirates yourself. Doesn't look like you're in good shape, though. You need a tow.
Yes, please, she responded as she leaned back into her chair, relieved to have gotten over this nightmare of a situation. Maybe I should hire a few more humans once we get to port. Well, what's the worst that can happen? End of story. Story number 2. Relentless, written by Kennel. They are. The humans, I mean. They may look harmless, but once they turn those eyes on you, you know. Even they know. Most humans consider it impolite to stare after all. They have the eyes of hunters. And they always hunt. Though not always for food. They even hunt each other. They have a whole huge groups that hunt each other, groups founded well before first contact, and now they're out in the galaxy at large. Those groups turn those hunting eyes upon us. I first saw one of these humans on Epsilon Station. They had just finished with a hunt, their poor victim prostrated and quietly weeping at the human's feet. I tried to ignore the scene, but there is no ignoring the gaze of those hunters' eyes. Of course I fled. Any sane Sophont would. Of course, I should have known that it wouldn't end there. I tried hiding in civilization, on the Fanar homeworld. A bit humid for my taste, but Fanar food and company are difficult to beat. It was barely a week before I saw a human in that uniform again. Those eyes turned on me, and I froze. But they, somehow, knew. I was saved then by some other Sophont who seemed to have business with the hunter, and I took my chance to escape. I knew that it would be ultimately futile, but I refused to simply sit and accept my fate. Perhaps they'd lose me in the fringe on some new colony that doesn't even have a space elevator yet. Sirius D technically didn't even have a name, though most of the colonists just called it the place nowhere. I had just exited the immigration office to look for my new home when I stumbled into a hunter. Here, of all places, he bared his teeth at me in a gesture that only a hunter could possibly think was friendly, and even helped me pull me upright. And then he asked if I knew where his quarry was, equally relieved and terrified. I said no, and made my exit. I don't know who this Jesus is, but what kind of guile and stealth must he be that even the humans have trouble finding him? End of story. The algorithm reckons you should be watching this video next, and I recommend that you should be always watching my video. So, click with energy! And yes, clicking that does help the channel. Thank you very much. I just quickly want to thank the Tier 5 patrons and channel members: Alithia Barkey, Cam Maxwell, Casper Arnholtz, Albarden Guster, Arcadian, Lord Azrakal, and Joachim Backer.